Alright guys, HyDra back again today. Hope you're doing well and enjoying your day so far. As Rostermania trundles on, Octane has given an interesting perspective on what he thinks players should do if they get any CDL offer for this upcoming season. This especially comes with players like Temp suggesting that he doesn't really want to go back to the Vegas Legion and would prefer to start in challenges and then try and get a spot in the CDL when better teams make changes. Is this actually a good decision? Because if you turn down a CDL offer, he may well come back to bite you. Very much intrigued to hear your thoughts in the comments below. Hit the like button if you enjoy. Subscribe if you're new as always, I would greatly appreciate it. Plenty to get into. First of all, thought this is funny from Hamza really, or Glowfrosty, looking back on at the MW19 opening kind of season, right? I don't know if you guys remember this. There was a prize pool as well, but they were trying to get people to sign up for the challenges event by saying that if you win, you get to go and like have dinner with Scumby. Basically, there was some crazy thing like this, where if you won, part of your prize was, you know, go a meet and greet with OpTic and the boys. Okay, it was Huntsman at the time, and yeah, whenever I heard about this at the time and whenever the challenges players, they were like, they're not really taking us that seriously, are they? They think we're just fans. Like, I'm here to be a pro as well. Like, Scump's my competitor, you know, as far as I'm concerned, if I was a player in this position. So, yeah, definitely the early days of the CDL were absolutely wild. Just wanted to mention this. Hopefully, Skyz is okay, because I know there was some talk here from Drazah that a lot of these guys playing these Black Ops 3 chals, the likes of, I mean, I look every day at Drazah's Twitter just to see what's going on, and every couple of hours up until, you know, the late hours of the night, as far as he's concerned, he's just grinding these Black Ops 3 chats, and I respect it hard, but I don't know when these guys are sleeping, to be honest. They're all over it. Scrappy and TJ and Prolute and these guys that have been grinding the last few days. It's kind of wild, and Skyz has been getting involved as well. So you know, so this guy kind of says, oh, Skyz's biggest beanhead or whatever, and he's like, I don't even take it. So of course, talking about the Adderall stuff that we always get back to at some point in the COD scene, had family issues with some stuff. Please don't just publicly say stuff. So yeah, hopefully all's well with Skyz here. If he's got things to deal with, hopefully it works out. But we believe he's going to get a nice, you know, solid spot in the CDL next season on Seattle. Maybe Vancouver is kind of the discussion that where Surge might potentially move to as it presently stands. Also thought this is pretty cool. Just, we never really talk about this stuff during the regular season, but after the season, you always get some interesting insight from the coaches and the analysts and stuff like this as to some of the strats the teams were deploying that you don't necessarily pick up on. And this is an interesting strat that OpTic came up with. I mean, look at this. Shotzzy just dives around the corner and somehow gets a two-piece here, which is, you know, you're not expected to get that return when you make this play. But Shotzzy's really just diving out to make space here for Dashy and to bait in so Dashy can get a kill, but he doesn't even need to because somehow Shotzzy gets the two-piece. And JP says that they copied this from Boston. So it's interesting to see how the teams do, you know, watch a lot of VOD. They understand what the other teams are doing. And so I think they saw this first here from Boston, which happened like 2 days prior to when OpTic deployed the exact same strategy. And then as Dareel says, we stole it from you lot. The chain continues. So kind of interesting, right? That Boston came up with an idea, OpTic copied it, then New York copied it, and I guess that's how the iteration goes. Now let's talk Rostermania then, because some of these players we don't yet know where they might land, if at all. There's only 4 players who are pros in Ghost Tour before that are still active. I know there was some talk here that I think Accuracy might have played like 1 event in Ghost, possibly, so you might consider him on this list, but I think as far as most people are concerned, he kind of came around in Advanced Warfare for his first year, I think, of competing. But excluding Accuracy, there's 4 players that were around in Ghost and pros in Ghost. Attach was one. TJ somehow, like, this kid was what, 14 or something at the time, like 13, 14, kind of wild to think about. And then Clay and Slasher. So Slasher, we know, is on a team confirmed to Boston for the upcoming season. The other 3 we don't know, and TJ is actually an interesting one because it doesn't seem like he's going to get a better offer than Vegas again, right, is what it might seem like. Now, it's possible that he does go. There's a chance that Clay and Attach join up on LAG and they bring along, well, we've discussed Standy, we've talked about Nero, but also TJ could be a good option as well. There's a few candidates out there that they might decide to go for, and, you know, so it'd be nice to see all these guys back in the league again. I know that people have said for many years now, TJ doesn't deserve a spot and all this, and I think it's going to be a bit touch and go for TJ, but still, his search and destroy prowess is undisputed, and especially if you're a team that's in the bottom half of the league, you really need that type of S&D prowess if you want to do anything. Look at a team like LAG, having that with Sasha, having that ridiculous fluke, let's be honest, but it was this crazy run at Major 2 in Vanguard to win it. They did that off the back of like a, 13 S&D win streak or something that they had throughout that tournament. If you do want to make miracle runs, a lot of it does start with Search and Destroy, and TJ can be a big piece of that. So I think that's a question for these teams to answer, and they're running out of options as it stands. But Octane gives his perspective on this and talks about that if you get an offer from a CDL team and you don't take it, you're basically an idiot. Now, this has been a big talking point of the last couple of seasons because players have, in recent memory, turned down CDL deals. And it's very rarely, I've got to say, actually worked out in their favour. There are maybe a couple of scenarios in which it might be a good idea, but as far as Octane's concerned, if you do this, you're a plonker and you're going to live to regret it.
And Gunter
do you
also
think it's worth it to like play on a dog shit CDL team or just play through challengers?
Well, you'd make more money playing for the dog shit CDL team than playing in challengers. So if you get offered a CDL contract and you don't take it, period, you're an idiot. I don't care who you are. I don't care what the circumstances are. If you opt to play in challengers over playing in the CDL, you're a moron. I don't care who you are. I think like even if the team is poor, like you could still show out and show qualities of like being good. Look at Afro, for example. He came into the league in Cold War. His team was absolute piss, but he played well, and now he's a staple in the league. Like, there's so many people that came in. If you come into the league with the right attitude, even if you're on a bad team and you perform well and show your worth to other teams, you're going to stay. Whereas like, I can't join the league. That team is bad. Let me show my worth in challengers, beating up on shitters. Like, come on, bro. Let's be honest.
But so we've seen a couple of examples of this recently, right? And Censor, for some reason I couldn't find too many tweets about this, but I'm pretty sure I made a video about this. That Doug confirmed a couple of months ago now that he had an offer to go and join Legion at some point. I don't know if it was this season or last season, I kind of forget, but I'm pretty sure he got an offer to go to Legion at some point. Yeah, maybe it was last year that he got an offer to go and join Legion. But Doug said no, and mainly because, and I get why, Legion wanted Doug, I guess, just because, content, brand, all this stuff, sure. And Doug probably knows that if he goes to Legion and gets fried, he's probably never getting back in the league. I know that Doug wants to get back in, and I imagine that he sees Boston as his best chance. So for Doug, it was like, well, if I want to go and join Vegas and take the CDL offer, I've got to leave Boston. I've got to leave the Boston Academy. I've got to leave this system. I've got to leave the guys that I know over here. I've got to leave the relationships I built with the general management and, the coaching staff at Boston. So I think this was probably a sensible move for Doug to say no to the Vegas offer, to stay where he is. Now, look, he could have gone to Legion, or Paris as it was, I guess, at the time, and played in the CDL again, become a pro player. But for what he's trying to achieve, that probably wouldn't have worked out for him. And I definitely get the skepticism for anyone to sign with Legion, because for the vast majority of players, with the exception pretty much of Temp and a couple of others, it's basically a career ender, right? If you go and join Vegas and play for them, you're probably going to get fried. The team chemistry isn't very good. Everyone's playing for their stats. And if you're coming in as like a dirty work SMG player, let's say a player like 2Real, I mean, fair play, 2Real did actually make it back in the league after having a tough time on Florida, but or Fire 40. Like, it's just really tricky to get back in. You might be a solid player, but your reputation might be killed by the stint on Vegas. So I get it why players turn it down. But on the other side of things, you've got to wonder whether this is actually not a good idea at all, because there was this discussion back in 2021 where the rumor was that Mohawk, right, he got an offer from maybe even a couple of CDL teams. Mohawk, who won Challengers World Championship a couple of years in a row, he wanted to join, and he's a main AR generally, which is what makes things really tricky, I think. There's not many spots for main ARs in the league at all, and I know that many have said, Money Mohawk, like, get him in, he deserves a spot, but I think he did get an offer at some point, but he said, look, I don't really want to play for Legion, I want to wait for a better team to give me an offer, which never really arrived, and, he hasn't got his chance. Now, look, you can argue that if he'd have joined Legion and got cooked because Legion's bad, he'd be banished to the Shadow Realm and would never see the light of day again. But at least he'd have given himself a chance. And the point that Octane is getting across, which I think is a good one, is that especially on teams like London, for example, players that actually bet on themselves and go in and play well, they can prove to be a solid player. Like, people, general managers, the community can tell if you're a good player on a bad team. And even if you're like, there's obviously some playing for numbers that's involved there. For example, Nasty, this most recent season on London, his numbers are probably pretty decent, but I don't think it was the numbers that made people think, oh, Nasty, he's a legit player. It was just the eye test, right? You watch London play, and like you can just tell that Nasty is legit when you watch him move around the map and the way he was playing on the flex roll this year. And you can just tell that, like, that's a guy that definitely deserves a CDL spot, and probably on a better team than London. Now, as it stands, that's probably not going to happen. He might be back on London again next year, but he's at least secured himself to some degree a consistent CDL spot going forwards. And it's the same story for Afro, right? When he was on London, he steps in mid-season on London. You know, you can just tell watching Afro play on that London team at the end of Cold War, they might be getting slammed. Afro's stats might not have looked anything crazy at the end of the season, but the good maps that he had, you could tell that he was legit, and therefore better teams decided, all right, Rocker gave him a go, and now he's probably going to join Thieves, and now he's, you know, pretty much a mainstay in the CDL. So there is a bit of betting on yourself involved, especially if you're a brand new player. And this is where I think it might be a bit different for Donny Temp. But if you're a brand new player, like a Mohawk, like an Afro, like, you know, Nasty or something, you don't turn down these offers, as far as I'm concerned, because if you do, you're just squandering a chance to actually prove that you are the real deal. For example, if Vegas come along and say, okay, GodRx, right, we want you in the team. GodRx shouldn't say no to that and wait for a better offer, because GodRx needs to come back in and prove that he's legit again, just like he was legit on Rocker in, you know, the Modern Warfare days, but has since been kind of ousted from the league. And in a similar way, we'll get back to Temp in a second, to Havoc and Kismet, right? Let's not forget, Havoc had the offer to go to New York Subliners, but he thought it was going to be a bit of a shambles, and he decided not to do so and waited in challenges for a better chance. Now, Havoc did get another chance in the CDL. He went back to Florida, right, last season and played respectably enough, but his teammate Kismet took the chance instead. Kismet goes into New York. He absolutely kills it in that team, becomes the perfect partner to HyDra. They win a lot of stuff, and now they've won champs. So I'm sure Havoc feels like, damn, maybe I made a bit of a mistake on that one. And look, Havoc still got back into the league, and it didn't like completely ruin his career, and he might still be back in the league again this year, but it's quite likely he's ending up in challenges, whereas Kismet is a world champion now and has got a massive pay rise, it seems, this season based on the results he got last year. So it seems to me that in 90% of cases, turning down an offer is not a good idea. Now, in Temp's case, it might be a bit different because he's already proven himself. People know what Temp can do. If he goes back to Vegas next season, and he probably will have an offer from them, let's be honest, it doesn't seem like he's going to get an offer as it stands from any team right now that isn't Vegas or London. So if he does get a CDL, and I'm sure Vegas will ask him back, I mean, why would they not? He's been like their best player for the last couple of years. They'll probably want him back, especially if Clay's gone to Gorillas or whatever the case might be there. Maybe Clay and Temp could even go over there together. We don't really know. But I would say that Temp, if he goes back to Vegas, I don't think he's proving anything more than he would otherwise, but he is getting a guaranteed salary at least, and there's a big question as to whether Temp should, because, you know, betting on yourself in part is taking these offers and proving you're really good if you're a brand new challenger player. But if you're Temp's case, you've already kind of proved that, and maybe betting on yourself instead is what Havoc has done, saying, you know what, I'll go to challenges, I'll bide my time, and I'll wait for a Rocker, a Surge, a Boston, I don't know, even a New York maybe or something, to not like their setup, make a change and bring him in. And Temp would be, if he was in challenges, the number one option in that flex role, I would say, but there's no guarantees that there's going to be that option arriving, and the same thing has happened before with players like Havoc that have taken a step back, waited for a better opportunity, but yet the better opportunity has really already passed them up. So very much intrigued to hear your thoughts on all this stuff in the comment section below. If you were Donny Temp, what would you do? Would you go and take this Vegas Legion offer, assuming it is there? But he did say in that video that I was just kind of sharing there that his plan is to not, he doesn't really want to go back to Vegas to earn a minimum and all this, or whatever they're going to pay him over there. It's not going to be great. He would prefer to kind of, you know, take a chance and hope that he can get a spot on a better team, because if he goes back to Vegas again, he might just be stuck there for the rest of his career. I guess that's one way to look at it. And maybe he's just got to trust that the stars will align and he'll get a chance. But it's not like the season is very long. It's not like the season is 9-10 months where, you know, let's say things change early on. There's plenty of chances still for Temp to get on a roster. Like, the season is going to be like 6-7 months again, right? More than likely, as it was this most recent season. So if the first few events happen and a lot of the top teams are reasonably good, especially in, let's say, you know, Priesth's role on Boston, you're looking at potentially Cammy's role on Thieves. I mean, there are some chances here though, and I definitely, if I'm Temp, I'm definitely looking at, you know, the situation with Cammy, or the situation on Rocker, and the Priestahh situation, and maybe like Seattle Surge with the RCT's Illy thing, and I'm seeing seeing possibilities there. Even the Subliners for Civ, if that really doesn't work out, maybe there's an in there. So I can see what Temp's thinking if he turns down Vegas, but it is nonetheless a risk, and Octane doesn't seem to think that it's a particularly good idea to do so. But very much enjoyed to hear your thoughts in the comments below. Hit the like button if you enjoyed. Subscribe if you're new. Take care, and I'll see you next time.